Hello, everyone. Jason Hagholm here, and today I'm joined by an old friend, a man who have actually been to his house to be on his show back in the days before COVID wrecked all those in-house guesses. It's the man that you know for great content creation and an MMA gambling degenerate. It's Manpreet Jhass, better known as MMA Lock of the Night. Manpreet, long time no chat. But thank you for coming on as we got a big pay-per-view to kick off the month of May here for the UFC at UFC 274.
Absolutely, Jason. Thank you for the invite as always. We've been trying to line this up for a couple weeks now. Been a little busy on my end of things. I got a wedding in a month's time right now as well, so I'm preparing for that. But very happy to finally hop on with you. I enjoyed when you came over to my crib and we did the combative tours a couple. It's almost been 2 years now since we did it right before
Yeah.
COVID. It was great to have you with your Bret Hart shirt on coming into the studio. It was a fun time. It's been far too long, like you said. I'm glad to finally get on another show with you and chop it up, especially about this big 274 card that we got coming up this weekend.
Yeah, well, let's get into this card because, as you say, it's a big card. And, we are hardcore MMA fans. We've watched anything and everything MMA. But for a UFC show with a couple title fights, especially with, a lightweight title fight, which is arguably one of the top divisions in the sport, how do you feel the buzz is going to this show, Manpreet? Because right now, for me, I'm excited for it. I know a lot of people like you and a lot of other hardcores are, but I don't feel the buzz that I would expect for a couple title fights and a UFC pay-per-view.
I'm excited. Like for me, it's like an 11 out of 10. Yeah, I mean, like I am very, very excited because not only do we get two title fights, but we get a ton of fun and entertaining fights. Now, the unfortunate part is the fact that Charles Oliveira isn't really a household name, right? Like even when he went up against Dustin Poirier back in December, I didn't feel that buzz as when Dustin Poirier was fighting a guy like Conor McGregor. And it's all coming down to the name value that we're getting in some of these cards, right? Great fights, like even the co-main event with the strawweight title fight, Rose Namajunas and Carla Esparza rematch 8 years in the making. That's a fantastic fight. Rose has been a fantastic, entertaining fighter whenever she goes out there and competes. I believe she's only ever headlined one card her entire time in terms of a pay-per-view, I should say. But more often than not, you see her as the co-main event. And I believe that's also in tune with, the fact that she just can't sell that much, right? She's kind of reserved as a character. She doesn't really like doing media. She has her own mental challenges and stuff that she has to overcome. And then on the flip side with Charles Oliveira, you're getting a guy that barely speaks English and can't really get sold to the American audience. And I think that's why we're not getting as much of a buzz about it as most people. But I really like this card. I really think it's going to be entertaining. Charles Oliveira, when doesn't he bring the fire, right? I believe out of his last 16 fights, only one of them has has gone the distance, which was the Tony Ferguson fight. But more often than not, from a betting perspective, I'm always banking on that under 2.5 because every time I bet it, it seems to come through. And I think it's going to be the same case here when he goes up against Justin Gaethje.
Plus, as well, on the buzz side of things, this card's going up against another pay-per-view on DAZN with Canelo Alvarez, obviously the pound-for-pound best boxer, and it's Cinco de Mayo weekend, which is a tradition in boxing. But from a fight perspective, like when you look at the X's and O's of this card, I am excited because let's start at the top here. Charles Oliveira taking on Justin Gaethje for the lightweight title. Oliveira is the favorite on most sports books going into this fight, but I just have this feeling Justin Gaethje, who's coming off an amazing performance against Michael Chandler, having been in a title fight before against arguably the greatest lightweight of all time, it could be Nurmagomedov, that this is his time. I think that if the fight goes to the ground, I think he's got the wrestling and the jiu-jitsu to survive. And while Oliveira has fought some good strikers, obviously he's just coming off fighting a Dustin Poirier, but not really known for his power. And then Michael Chandler does have power, but can get caught in those circumstances that he ended up getting caught in. Justin Gaethje can end your night and could end a normal man's life with one punch to the face because this guy is a human wrecking machine when he comes in. And I don't know if Oliveira is susceptible to getting caught. I don't know if he can survive that. I'm nice to see that the sports books are giving Oliveira being the favorite because he's usually the underdog, even though he's a champion. But once again, I feel I'm giving him his respect. He's definitely dangerous, especially in a wild scramble on the ground. He could definitely catch Gaethje in a choke. But I'm leaning Justin Gaethje to become the new UFC lightweight champion and give Trevor Whitman 3 champions in the UFC.
That Trevor Whitman, talk about a mastermind and a genius in his own right. To remember, even the what was it, the Usman and who's the last person Usman fought? Was it the Masvidal fight where he had three guys on the main card and
That
they
was
had to
the
put
second Covington fight. Yeah.
the second Covington fight where he had Rose in the co-main event, and then they had to move Chandler and Gaethje down a spot just because he couldn't, they coached three fights back to back to back. But no, yeah, very close fight, man. I do think the odds are a little bit too wide here. It's going to be a chaotic fight. No other way to put it. Both guys are going to come for it. Like you said, Justin Gaethje throws with a lot of power. We've seen Oliveira still hurt. He's managed to battle through adversity and come back and still pull off the victory like he did in the Poirier and the Chandler fights. But Gaethje's another animal, man. Once he smells blood, he's going to go after you and he'll likely put you away. And he has all the wrestling chops and boxing chops to make this a very competitive fight. I still lean Oliveira, though. I think his crisper shots down the middle will likely allow him to find some good spots, maybe even drop Justin Gaethje in his own right, maybe find a club and sub situation where he hurts Gaethje and then jumps on the back and finds a choke. 15 submission victories in the UFC, which is a UFC record. Second place, Damian Maia at 11. So I don't think anybody's catching Charles Oliveira's submission record anytime soon, because I do think he's going to add to it. Maybe not this weekend, but he'll continue to add to it as he's still quite young in his professional MMA career. I feel like he still has a solid amount of years to go. But I lean Charles ever so slightly. But like I said at the top of the show, the violence bet is where I want to go here. I'm going with the under 2.5, which currently sits around -150. Give me that. Give me violence. That covers both spots here because Gaethje is a very tough task to overcome, and I would not be betting against him, especially at -170. So fun fight. I honestly don't care who wins, just as long as I can cash my violence bet.
I think you're pretty much guaranteed violence, and every time Justin Gaethje's in there, he's a whirling dervish of violence each and every fight. And getting prepared to chat with you, obviously, kind of looking back at Justin Gaethje's career, like I can't think of someone who's come in from another organization, like when he was a World Series of Fighting lightweight champion, that's had the success that Justin Gaethje has had in the UFC. He probably had arguably the greatest debut fight of anyone coming in from another promotion in that Michael Johnson fight. Yes, he's had his ups and downs, but once he reevaluated in not having to be so wild and a little bit more technical, but still have that violence in him, I think that was obviously the turning point. And you also learn from being in these big fight experiences, well, what not to do. And the guy he fought was Khabib in Abu Dhabi, where he was a huge road team up against Khabib in that type of a fight and atmosphere. But you're taking Oliveira, but it still seems like Oliveira, the champion, and having put away Michael Chandler, a former Bellator champion, and Dustin Poirier, one of the best lightweights and a former interim lightweight champion. This guy still doesn't get his respect. And if he gets over Justin Gaethje, there is no denying that this man can never be taken for granted ever again.
Yeah, it's been the constant theme over his last couple of fights that people just don't give Oliveira the respect, right? He was the underdog in the last couple of fights, if I'm not mistaken, either, right? Now he's finally the favorite, but I think it's swung a little bit too far in his favor at this point in time. You cannot overlook Gaethje, and I think we'll quickly find that out this weekend when he makes it a very competitive fight. Whether he gets his hand raised or not, that's yet to be determined, but I think it's going to be a violent fight. Both guys have great paths to victory. I can't wait to see how it plays out.
I can't wait to see how it plays out either. It's interesting. It's one that it maybe goes to the scorecards, but that would be an anomaly. But it's one you see maybe finishing third round or early championship rounds. But who knows? I'm excited to see the stylistic matchups. And a lot of questions too is, Gaethje feels that he can bring up the quitter in Charles Oliveira going into this fight that he used to be. I don't know if he can. He's definitely gotten a lot tougher mentally as a fighter and absorbing some shots, but as we've both said, this guy, Gaethje, when he hits you, he can end your lights. So who knows where it goes. But I'm expecting to be a fun fight. I've picked Gaethje. You've taken Oliveira. So we get the split there. And then we move to the co-main event where Rose Namajunas will take on Carla Esparza, looking to avenge that loss in the first ever UFC Women's Strawweight Championship match at the end of one of the Ultimate Fighter seasons, where Carla Esparza did get the victory in that fight and not only won, but made Rose Namajunas quit. Her words exactly on the UFC countdown special that came out last week. So, but that Rose is such a different fighter. Carla's such a different fighter since then. That was 2015. I mean, we're both different people since 2015, right? So a lot has changed in the world of mixed martial arts since the year of our Lord 2015. And I think Rose Namajunas, I think she's right now arguably, behind Valentina Shevchenko as the best women's fighter in the sport right now. She's gotten some things together mentally, having experienced a championship run and going through that and now being a little bit more mature, more improved. I think she finds a way to maybe get a finish late, or if not, go to the scorecards against Esparza. I think she's just a different animal. I think Trevor Whitman is the peak coach in mixed martial arts right now and will just guide her way through and give her the right coaching in this fight. And give credit to Carla Esparza. The Cookie Monster has turned her career around, been on a good little win streak here, a 5-fight win streak. Some of those may be controversial decisions, but her last win against Yan Xiaonan, I mean, she really booked her ticket to this opportunity in decisive fashion. But I just think Rose right now is too much, and the hype machine and the train is going to go on for Rose Namajunas.
I do agree with you, but we do need to give respect to Carla Esparza a little bit here too, right? During this 5-fight winning streak that she's on, she was an underdog in 3 of those fights, and I think a lot of that has to do that people don't respect her game. She is the best, if not the second best wrestler in that division, probably behind Tatiana Suarez, who she's dealing with her own issues now in terms of not even being able to stay active. And if I'm not mistaken, she's actually moving up to 125 pounds, or has at least for the last couple of fights. But Carla Esparza's wrestling is the real deal, and if there's anybody that's going to give Rose problems on the ground, it will likely be Carla Esparza. But that's where it stops, right? The striking is where Rose very much thrives. She, beats Joanna Jacek over 25 minutes in the striking realm. She's doing, the same thing against Weili Zhang. She's very, very skilled in that aspect, and I'd be surprised if Carla Esparza wins any minutes with this fight in the standing realm. She needs to get this fight to the ground. But the thing that we see right off the bat, and I just did the tape study for this fight a couple of days ago, where I watched the first fight between them, and then I watched the second Ioane and Jacek fight back to back. And you see a vast improvement in Rose Namajunas, and specifically with her range management. Her distance management has improved so much, and that will help her drastically here, especially with, seeing the shots come from a mile away, which Carla Esparza normally does, especially when she starts to get desperate. And that will allow Rose to get out of the way, get her strikes together, put some damage on Carla Esparza, and make it even more difficult for Carla to get this fight to the ground. The intriguing part also is the fact that Weili Zhang in her last fight landed 5 takedowns against against Rose Namajunas. If Carla Esparza lands 5 takedowns, that might be a title win for Carla Esparza. However, we saw great things from Rose off her back. One being a solid reversal from her against Weili Zhang, and then also the ability to get her feet on the hips of Weili, push her off, and get back to her feet. And that's where you see a lot of people able to get up off of the ground against Carla Esparza, is doing the same thing. Like Carla, she really has to either stand up and stack her opponent to get some ground and pound off. Otherwise, she's just trying to hold you to the ground, and you're not really scoring much if you're just holding your opponent on the ground. Rose does a very good job in terms of staying active with her jiu-jitsu, staying active off her back, disrupting the balance of her opponent on top of them, so they can't really get much going off from the top position. And I think that's going to very much favor Rose in this spot. She should be able to keep it, keep it standing for the most part. But even when she does get taken down, inevitably she will get taken down. But I think she works her way back to her feet, and then the work that she's going to be able to put together on the feet with her striking should start to get the judges to start favoring her. But I don't even think the judges are going to be needed here. I do think that Rose eventually finishes Carla later in this fight, whether it's a club and sub situation like I was talking about with Charles Oliveira, or she finds that knockout, man. She has deceiving power for a 115 pounder, and we've seen it time and time again. I think we see it this time as well. Give me Rose by finish.
Yeah, or Rose can keep, if she's able to keep the fight standing and stuff a couple takedowns here and there as it goes on. Like, remember that head kick against Zhang last April, right? Like, that came out of nowhere. She can hit you with those head kicks, those high kicks to the body from anywhere as well. But if you're Carla Esparza, you have to be watching that second Zhang fight where she had some success on the ground, and you've seen Carla kind of be a little bit more aggressive, not just lay and pray, riding out around, smothering an opponent. Like that Yan Xiaonan fight, she was able to move to side control, get a crucifix position and land some devastating elbows that left an imprint on Xiaonan's forehead that took a couple days to heal up for her. and a nasty cut as well. So Carla probably knows I got to do what I did before, use that wrestling mentality. But as well, like, you're talking about that previous fight from 2015. Like, Rose was 22 years old.
Yeah.
Right. And there was so much pressure on her. Dana White coming out saying she's the next Ronda Rousey. Like, that is a lot for a fighter that only had a handful of professional mixed martial arts fights, not including stuff on The Ultimate Fighter, which didn't go on your record. But that's a lot of pressure. And Rose has just been growing, not only her skill-wise, but mentally, having been the face of a division, or one of the faces of a division, for a long period of time. And I just think she just has gotten so much better. I think Esparza, I'm happy they made the fight. It looked like this fight was never going to happen because of Carla Esparza's lack of ability to create interest. But this fight does make sense with the history. Esparza's looking at her peak right now, but I think we're at the peak Rose Namajunas, and it's going to be Thug Rose time once again. Whether she gets a finish or it goes to the scorecards, nonetheless, I think Rose wins this and solidifies herself here, Manpreet, as, like I said, probably the second best female fighter in the UFC right now.
I'd have to agree, man. I'd really have to agree. She makes a damn good case for herself, especially beating a lot of these women time and time again. The fight that I'd really like to see, hopefully they can make it, considering they're 1-1, is Jessica Andrade and Rose Namajunas. If you remember the ending of that second fight, the tide was very much turning, with the Andrade finally closing the distance successfully, really beating her up, really busting her up. But time expired and Rose was able to get her hand raised there. But that fight would very much intrigue me if she does get past Carla Esparza this weekend. Jessica Andrade is always going to be at the top of that 115-pound division. I think she would likely be next. Maybe if they give her another number one contender fight to try to prove herself. But, if Rose gets past Carla, who else is there? There's really nobody else.
I mean, I know we have Joanna and Weili. They're fighting at UFC 275, but it's like Rose has beaten both of them twice decisively in some of those fights as well. So this is why this division needs to maybe let Rose take a little bit of time off to recycle the pool, refilter some contenders, because you just can't have like the same four girls fighting for the title. Then you have a mock version of flyweight, basically, where we could have Brandon Moreno and Figueiredo fight for 100 years. Granted, those fights are fantastic. I would never get bored of it. But there's other contenders that need their opportunities. So I could see them, Rose taking some time off. This is kind of a bit of a quick turnaround for Rose, having just fought in November, now here early in May of 2022. So I could definitely see that. But yeah, Jessica Andrade, I mean, she looked great back at 115 a couple weeks ago. Maybe you do that, especially with the story, and then Rose avenges everyone and rides out into the sunset. I don't know, but that's what I could see definitely happening going on at 115. But we both agree here, Rose Namajunas, and still come Saturday night. Now, one of the other interesting fights here on this card, Michael Chandler versus Tony Ferguson. Obviously, two guys that have a lot of respect from the hardcore fans and fans overall, I guess I should say, in mixed martial arts. But two guys also with different stances on the Ultimate Fighting Championship as a promotion right now. As Michael Chandler, he seems to be all for the UFC, loving his time there in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And Tony Ferguson, who just went in on the Ultimate Fighting Championship at the media day just yesterday, basically calling, UFC and Dana White, drug dealers for, lack of pay and all this type of stuff that we keep hearing about in the sport. First, before we get into the fight here, Manpreet, what did you think of Tony Ferguson's comments? Because Tony was a guy, even just a year ago, that was kind of pro-UFC.
It does shine a light on kind of, how fighters truly feel about how much they're getting paid and how they're getting treated. Because one of the other things that Tony Ferguson brought up was his want to actually like go box and do other things while he's still under contract with the UFC. And Dana's like, nah, dog, you're not allowed to go do anything else. We can't risk you getting injured doing these other things and then not be able to fight for us and withhold your contract. So a part of me understands the UFC side of things, but that just means that they're just not getting paid enough, right? That's what it boils down to, is that you got to put some more money in their pockets so that they're content with just fighting for you specifically. So, yeah, given the rough run that Tony Ferguson's on, given his own mental health issues, this is not too surprising for me that he's retaliating and just looking for somebody to kind of blame, I guess, if you want to call it that. But he's really got to turn it around, though, in his career, because he's really getting up there in age, right? He's close to cracking 40 years old at this point. Hasn't won a fight in how long? I think this whole COVID era, he's pretty much been, winless. that this is a winnable fight for him. The odds may not, reflect it, but this is a winnable fight for it. So get it done inside the cage first, and then start to bring your other issues to light. Until then, the UFC is just going to be like, hey, you're not winning. Of course, you're not getting paid enough. You're getting sent home with half your paycheck half the time. If you were winning, would you be making this stink? Because you'd be going with home 6 figures rather than just 5 figures, right? So, yeah, very, very tough. It was hard for me to watch that, man. I'm a big Tony Ferguson fan. Very tough for me to watch. So you got to know that there's something going on with his brain for sure.
I think Tony's just fed up. I mean, this is also a thing that we continue to see happen with not only UFC fighters, but like top of the top UFC guys. You've heard it now from Francis Ngannou, the heavyweight champion, huge beef going on still with him and Dana White in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. John Jones has said this before, and a host of other guys as well about the fighter pay. Now, fighter pay is always going to be an issue, and with Dana on that sports podcast pretty much saying like, how dare, who starts a promotion and is willing to pay people money? Like, you got to pay them low. Like that, we knew that. But I thought Tony brought up a good point about like insurance. Like, this guy did tear his knee out and was out for over a year. And yeah, and nearly and missed out on that Khabib fight where, we never got that. That's our unicorn of mixed martial arts fights. I thought he brought up a good point of that. Like, where is their health insurance on this? Because, I mean, most of these guys are Americans. That's a good point. If you're such a big company like the UFC, who has openly boasted about being the most successful time for them at a period during COVID right now, it's a bad look for the UFC.
They have some sort of insurance program, if I'm not mistaken. Like, it's kind of like they cover your medical expenses if you suffer an injury inside the fight, I believe it is. Maybe they wanted to extend it to training camps or even fight week mishaps like what Tony Ferguson went through. But I think they actually do. I think they cover up to like 40 grand per year or 60 grand per year. I could be off on that, but I'm certain that they have some sort of medical insurance, something like that.
I would hope it's now extended to like tripping on a cable at an event or doing media for an event and tearing your ACL, where you've now the company themselves lost out on a pay-per-view buys because people may have turned the corner not wanting to buy that. But as we look at this fight now here, you brought up the point here that Tony Ferguson, he's getting up to 40. He hasn't looked good at all since that Justin Gaethje fight, where maybe it's just how Gaethje is. He just ends people's ability to fight at such a high level, but he hasn't looked good. Like that Beneil Dariush fight, I was shocked at how well Dariush was able to get the fight to the ground with ease, keep that top control, and just ride out Tony Ferguson. And Tony, I know he's throwing wild, unique style strikes, but you can't be doing that against once you get to the higher up. Unless you're 100% confident in it. But here's Michael Chandler, who has that great wrestling, good power. This is a very winnable fight, as you said, for Ferguson, but I think it's an even better winnable fight for Michael Chandler. I think he stuffs maybe some takedown attempts, keeps it on the feet, and maybe just causes some damage, gets a stoppage there. If not, he's going to ride out a unanimous decision, in my opinion. I think this is the perfect fight for Chandler to win some fans back, get another win in the UFC, go 500 right now in the UFC, and set himself up for maybe a title shot down the line. Who knows? But I think this is the better win fight for Michael Chandler. And Tony Ferguson's got a lot going on going to this fight, like literally at media day. I respect the courage, the passion. I agree with him, but that's a lot going on before you're supposed to fight one of the best lightweights in the world. So I lean Michael Chandler here by a victory, however it may be.
Tony Ferguson, like, there's something about his game that actually not his game, but more so the trajectory of his career that reminds me of Tyron Woodley. Because one thing with Tyron Woodley is that a lot of people are crapping on him, saying, oh, he just has a power in his right hand. He doesn't use his wrestling anymore. He always backs up to the cage. Whereas with Tony Ferguson, his style was very much focused on him getting finishes, right? When he was on that crazy winning streak, it was all about getting finishes. Donald Cerrone finishes. Anthony Pettis finishes. Kevin Lee getting controlled for the majority of the first 2 rounds, finishes him in the third. And we know now that historically speaking, Kevin Lee normally has cardio issues. Dos Anjos, that was a clean win over 5 rounds. Very clean win for him there. Lando Venata, remember that fight? That's the fight that brought Lando Venata onto everybody's radar. Came in on a short notice for that fight, UFC debut, if I'm not mistaken, and was close to finishing Tony Ferguson. Almost finished him. But Tony Ferguson pulls it out of his ass, gets the win himself. Fight before that, Edson Barboza, gets the dart stroke in that fight. Josh Thompson, clean win. I'll give him that. Gleison Tebow gets the first round rear naked choke. Abel Trujillo gets the second round rear naked choke. Danny Castillo beats him off of his back. If you remember that, Danny Castillo was on top of him the entire fight, but Tony Ferguson just, ripping him with elbows from off of his back and then wins that split decision that night. So the main thing here, and the reason I brought up Tyron Woodley is, if you go back and watch Tyron Woodley fights, it's the same thing in terms of he relied on his power and it paid off for him more often than not, right? Knocking out guys, dropping Stephen Wonderboy Thompson numerous times in their fight so that it swings his way and he either gets a draw or gets the decision victory in those fights. Robbie Lawler beats him with a knockout. Josh Koscheck beats him with a knockout. But when he gets extended is when he starts to fall off, right? He did beat Kelvin Gastelum by decision, but that was not after, Kelvin Gastelum had to go to the hospital the night before because of an egregious weight cut that he had going on for him. So Ferguson will always be dangerous, but the guys that he's been facing over his last 3 fights have legitimate skills over him, right? Justin Gaethje, much better technical striker, and we saw that on full display. Charles Oliveira, Benio Dariush, much better pure jiu-jitsu players, which is why they were both able to control Tony Ferguson for 80% of the 30 minutes that Tony Ferguson fought against both of them. Now, Michael Chandler, great wrestling, right? Solid wrestler, but we haven't seen him lean on that for a long time now. He wants to go out there and he wants to swing leather. It seems like there was a lot of hatred towards him for some reason when he came into the UFC. A lot of people just didn't like him, whether it was him being smug, him being cocky, whatever it was. But I believe his fight with Justin Gaethje was his hazing to finally become a fan-friendly fighter, right? Finally be, get the positivity of the fans behind him. And I feel like he's finally gotten that. But that all comes with fighting a very dangerous game plan. And if he goes in there and tries to fight, a similar game plan to what he did against Justin Gaethje, things could get shaky because Tony Ferguson, albeit not a great technical striker, thrives in chaos, and he's gonna produce chaos right off the bat. And if Michael Chandler is not able to, find that early knockout or not use his wrestling, things could get very shaky for him. Which is why I'm not a big fan of that minus 400 on Michael Chandler in this spot. I would rather take another violence spot. I would rather take this fight not going the 15 minutes because I either see Michael Chandler starching him early in this fight, or the pressure, the pace, and the style that Tony Ferguson brings could eventually open up another dart stroke finish for him or something like that. Maybe it brings out a sloppy takedown entry from Michael Chandler, allows Tony Ferguson to take his back, and he probably finds a rear naked choke. Like, these are all possibilities. I'm not completely writing off Tony Ferguson, as most people are, because this is a completely different stylistic matchup than his last couple of opponents. But I still do think that Michael Chandler eventually finds that chin early in this fight and puts him out. But give me violence in this fight. We'll go Chandler, and Chandler via violence.
Well, on your point here of Michael Chandler, and yeah, he's been trying to fight, the stand-up style, putting guys away on the feet with his striking, trying to win those fans over. And you know what? He has been, for sure. And when you look at Michael Chandler's career, he's going to fight like that when either he's very aggressive or has, a beef with someone. Look at those pit bull fights. He just fought very aggressive on the feet. Didn't want to have to use his wrestling. There's no beef here with Tony Ferguson. And I think he learned a lesson because he knew that the hype going into that Gaethje fight was, oh my God, it's going to be Rock'em Sock'em Robots. I kind of got to deliver on that, especially in Madison Square Garden, a building where I've had some bad juju before. I can't have that happen here the second time around against Justin Gaethje. I expect him to use the wrestling a lot more here. The wrestling is the gateway to success right now up against Tony Ferguson. As you said, look at the guys, Dariush, Chandler, not Chandler, Oliveira. Gaethje at times did use it, but more so Gaethje just hits, as we said before, like a Mack truck, like you couldn't pay me enough to get hit by Justin Gaethje. But honestly, I expect him to use that style, the wrestling, look for some submissions, some ground and pound. Henry Hooft, his coach back in the Gaethje fight, was like, you're just going way too hard here. Like, settle down. I expect him to see a much more mature, a much more we know who we, the hardcores, know his great runs in Bellator. We knew he was a great acquisition for the UFC, but the UFC fan that's going to watch every pay-per-view or just the casual sport fan, they know now who Michael Chandler is. So I wouldn't expect that wild, crazy guy that you saw back in November in Madison Square Garden. I expect a calculated Michael Chandler that maybe he gets some ground and pound as the fight progresses late in the third round, or rides into the scorecards, because I don't think he can afford himself to take as much damage. And as you said, you don't want chaos around Tony Ferguson, because it's an MMA fight. Anything can happen.
Tony Ferguson and Brandon Royval, thankfully fighting on the exact same card, masters of chaos. They thrive in the chaos, and I believe we're going to see chaos in both of those fights. I agree with your assessment of this fight. I can't wait for it, man. I am super giddy and excited that we're about 48 hours away from all this going down.
Yeah, I'm very excited for this, as well as the temperature will continue to rise in Phoenix, Arizona, thanks to this card. And then moving on to this card, we got a light heavyweight fight. Ovince St. Preux, Mauricio Shogun, who the first time we're seeing Shogun since November of 2020, like right at the beginning of the pandemic, against Paul Craig. And Ovince St. Preux, he's returning to light heavyweight, which is probably the best weight class for him, as he did not look good at all at heavyweight against Tanner Boser his last time out. Look, OSP, he's also got a victory here over Shogun, which I believe was OSP's UFC debut. Yeah. Not his debut, but he did have a win on short notice against Shogun Hua back in November of 2014, where he got Shogun out of there in 34 seconds. I think, OSP, an interesting guy. I like OSP, but I'm all in here on Shogun. I don't know how many times we're going to see Shogun. I think Shogun has motivation to eradicate that loss that he had against Ovince St. Preux back in 2014. I think we see the best Shogun. First of all, I'm just excited to see Shogun on the pay-per-view again. Hit that Armin van Buuren music, because I'm going to get excited when I hear that. That just gets me going. One of the best entrance musics in all of the history of mixed martial arts. A Pride legend, a mixed martial arts legend, former UFC champion at light heavyweight. I think we see a revigorated Shogun, a much more improved. He's taken a full year off to regroup, heal that body. I think he finds a way to put out OSP, who, look, I'm not betting on this fight because both guys are just too unpredictable at this stage of their career. But I think Shogun comes out here, gets a big victory, and maybe rides off into the sunset.
Now, let me just quickly turn my camera here so you can see this beautiful poster that I have of the title-clinching, title-winning performance from Shogun Hua over there in Montreal back at UFC 113. He's my favorite fighter, hands down. Favorite fighter of all time. He was, closer to his prime when I became a hardcore fan, but this is not the fight. This is not the fight. I'm not sure why they're giving him this fight. Let's run back the Nogueira, quadrilogy rather than giving him this fight again, because Ovince St. Preux, although he's getting up there in age as well, I believe he's only about a year and a half younger than Shogun. He still has his explosivity. He still has his power. And I think that's all it's going to take, man. I think he eventually lands that punch early in this fight again. I think it hurts Shogun. Shogun just does not react well to getting hit clean. And seeing him tap out to Paul Craig in the last fight was very demoralizing for me. Tap to strikes. Not a good look at all. I know. Far cry from kicking people in the face in Pride. But I got to go OSP here, man. I got to go OSP round one. I think that bet currently sits at plus 200. I think he gets him out of there pretty quickly. Once he lands that power, he gets him out of there. It's over with. If he happens to not land the punch, though, that's where the veteran experience of Shogun will come into play, because we've seen over the last couple wins that he's gotten that his fight IQ is pretty good, right? He knows when to go for takedowns, especially late in rounds, especially in close rounds. He'll go for that takedown. He'll go for the body lock. He'll try to clinch you up. He'll try to win some minutes just off of control alone and just chipping away at you with knees or short punches. But, I'd be surprised if he survives an early barrage here from OSP. OSP is just still too powerful, too explosive for him. And Shogun, come on, dog. Just let's hang him up. Let's hang him up. Let's call it a career. You've had a nice long career. You're 40 years old now. You must have made a good amount of money that you do not need to keep fighting. I'm sure you can get a lot of great sponsorships down there in Brazil, being a legend that you are. Open up your own, burger store like Jose Aldo's doing. Create your own whiskey or something like that. I'm sure you can sell bottles and bottles down there in Brazil. But this fighting thing has long passed him. I get it. They're getting another aged guy here in Ovince St. Preux. But Ovince St. Preux, Jason, me and you know this, being around the fight game for so long, the last thing to leave you is power. And I believe Ovince St. Preux still has power. I believe he puts out Shogun, and I think it looks just as easy as it did the first time.
The other reason I'm taking Shogun here, I think OSP is taking Shogun so lightly. Like, yes, the last time you fought, 2014, you got him out there in 34 seconds. He's out there saying on media day, it's going to be much more quick and much more deadly of a finish that he had against Shogun here at UFC 274. I don't think you got to. Even though Shogun, he's a shell of what we know as Mauricio Shogun Hua. Still can't take someone that lightly going into a fight. And Shogun seems motivated to eradicate that loss of a loss he felt he probably shouldn't have had back in 2014. I think Shogun finds a way to get this one done. I just don't know what OSP we're going to get. Are we going to get the motivated one, which we don't seem like right now? We get a motivated OSP. Yes, I can totally see with you. He does have power. He's long. He's big and tall for that division. Very athletic, coming off of being a former college football player at the University of Tennessee. But I don't know what motivation we're going to get. Heavyweight was a bad choice. I don't know how much Tanner Boaster's maybe rattled them that jaw up a little bit from before. I still lean Shogun Hua here. I have to go Shogun Hua, eradicate OSP, yeah, you know me, and just call it a career, because I don't need to see Shogun anymore after this, but I just want to see him one more time for the Armin van Buren, get this victory, and then he can retire and go up to the sunset. Because I think a lot of people that are going to buy this show, other than the diehards, have no clue how legendary this guy is in Shogun.
And that's the same thing with like Anderson Silva, right? When he was fighting Jared Cannonier, like nobody remembered how lethal of a fighter he actually was. And nothing would make me happier than seeing Shogun knock out OSP here and ride off into the sunset, put the gloves down in the middle of the cage and call it a career. Which is why, like, I'm not betting, OSP at minus 230. I would rather take the fight doesn't go to decision at minus 230 and possibly get a finish from either side here. But yeah, color me surprised if OSP lands cleanly on Shogun early here and doesn't put him out.
It'll be an interesting fight. I'm excited to see, as we said, Shogun. We'll find out who finds their way through. At least I'm also happy that this is on the pay-per-view, because this could very easily be a prelim, and that's, to me, disrespectful to the legend that is Mauricio Shogun Hua, who was in that kind of let's put someone over spot with like Anthony Smith a few years ago. So I don't want to see that. And then, moving out here to close out the main card, Donald Cowboy Cerrone versus Joe Lauzon. Two other guys that are, solid names in the fight game. Cowboy Cerrone, obviously, one of the most exciting fighters to ever fight inside mixed martial arts, taking on another crafty veteran here in Joe Lauzon. I like Joe Lauzon in this fight, and I like him early in this fight as well. We want to talk about Shogun being a shell of himself. That's where Cowboy is as well. This guy that can't take damage as much as he used to be able to. He's getting up there in age. Sure, he's trying to maybe put on a show with his son being there once again. But Joe Lauzon, this is a guy that hasn't fought at all since the COVID era. His last fight was in 2019. He still looks like he can put on good performances. And plus, he's got that healthy, relaxed body going into this fight. I love Joe Lauzon. We know him for being a really good submission fighter. But I think he's got underrated power. And I think he finds a way maybe to clip Cowboy, get him out of there early, or drop him and then find a way to get a submission. So I actually have a bet Joe Lauzon by winning the first round at plus 400. So I am taking Joe Lauzon, J-Lo, to get a victory to kick off the main card in excitement and turn Cowboy Cerrone and take him to the glue factory.
I like that. There is a bet out there. Shout out to FanDuel that's actually has a prop round 1 KO for Joe Lauzon plus 1,200. I don't think that's a bad little sprinkle there, considering the durability issues we've seen from Cerrone. Yesterday was a 3-year anniversary of the last time Cerrone actually got his hand raised here in the Great White North when he took Al Iaquinta the full 25 minutes and beat him via decision in Ottawa. But yeah, it really hasn't looked good for him ever since then. Getting finished a couple times, really not showing up to big moments. And then even last time around, getting finished by Alex Morono, not a good look at all. However, I do think that the motivation that he has right now, obviously with his son, seems to be, training very well. I spoke to Cody Donovan earlier this morning, and he's talking about how he's noticed Cowboy at the PI pretty much every single day, has his RV parked in the parking lot over there, and literally just training very, very hard to to try to get a win, especially in front of a crowd, especially in front of his newborn. And then on the flip side for Joe Lauzon, I just talked to Tyson Chartier a couple hours ago, a very good friend of Joe Lauzon's, and he's saying he's working his ass off in the gym every single day, really wants to, make a statement in this fight. And I really thought his last performance against Jonathan Pierce was the perfect opportunity for him to take off his gloves in his hometown, put him in the middle of the cage and call it a career. But I don't know what's bringing him back into the cage here. He should, I really think it comes to him getting on Cowboy early. That's usually been Cowboy's kryptonite, is getting him out of there early. But if he can't, I think Cowboy gets into his groove, gets into his flow state with the striking, and then eventually gets Lauzon out of there later in this fight. So I actually lean Cowboy here. I'm thinking about betting him, but that early going is going to be very tough. So maybe a live betting entry here on Cowboy after round one is probably going to be the best way to go. But I do like I do like Cowboy here. Maybe even the violence spot, right? Under 2.5, I think is at a pretty good line. I could see both guys finding a finish in this fight. I'm going to lean Cowboy Cerrone. And I'm also going to hop off the camera for 30 seconds to fix my mic stand, which keeps falling on me right now. And then I'll get right back to you.
Hey, no problem. Go fix that as I ramble here about, Joe Lauzon. He's pretty much put himself in the spot of like, he still wants to fight. He's not sure if he's going to retire or still keep fighting. And I think that's an interesting way to look at it. Like, he's kind of just, playing with house money going into this fight. And I just think you want a healthy guy and a guy that has, underrated power. Like, remember when Joe Lauzon made his UFC debut all the way back, I believe at UFC 65, where he put away Jens Pulver. This guy can put you away. He's got some good, solid power, a good technical striker. And I don't know, like, I don't like what I've seen from Cowboy. Getting emotional at the press conference. Obviously, with his son, he's taken, maybe sure training at the PI is a good thing, but there's something about having rested your body, still being involved in the sport, training some guys, and being involved, as a broadcaster, as Joe Lauzon is with CES. So I am leaning here at Joe Lauzon. I do think it ends early. I think we maybe see this fight find the second round or maybe early third round, but I think your best bet would be this fight ends first or second round here, because I just think Joe Lauzon, that's where he's at right now. He snapped a 3-fight losing streak back in that last fight against Jonathan Pierce. That win has aged very well coming into this fight here against Donald Cerrone. But, look at the guys he fought. And Stevie Ray, Stevie Ray, he hasn't been fighting. He's not longer in the UFC. He's in the PFL. Clay Guida, he lost that fight early due to punches. And Clay Guida, an MMA legend, and Chris Grussmacher. So, look, this is a good fight here, a good spot for Joe Lauzon, I think. And, Cerrone, we're trying to figure out what Cerrone we're going to get. And yeah, as you said there, Manpreet, you got to get on him early. Just look at the Conor McGregor fight. McGregor got in there, blitzed Cowboy Cerrone, and found a way to get the finish early on in that fight. So that is where I lean for that one. And then, to me, one of the most interesting fights on this card is the feature prelim fight. It is a welterweight fight. Chaos Williams, Randy Brown. This is a fight I'm very excited for. I have Randy Brown picked and put some money on Randy Brown here, as he's a good underdog. Chaos Williams is an exciting fighter. And when you're an exciting fighter that has power, that can end your lights, put your lights out with just one punch, that is something of intrigue. But I think Randy Brown is really putting it together as one of the up-and-coming welterweights here in the division. His last loss was August of 2020 to Vicente Luque, who, look where Vicente Luque has been. A fantastic performance against Cowboy Oliveira last April, and then, October, a good win against Jared Gooden. And I think this is the real test to see who's going to continue to rise up the mountain here. And while Chaos Williams, he will use those leg kicks and look for the big punch, and we continue to see the evolution of Chaos Williams, I think Randy Brown's evolved to the point where I think he finds a way to get a victory here. I don't know if he can finish Chaos Williams, because Chaos Williams is very durable, but I definitely have to pick Randy Brown, the rude boy, as well. It'll be a disservice to my Jamaican roots.
I love it. No, I'm on the same page as you, brother. I would absolutely pick Randy Brown here, especially at the underdog. It's an extra incentive, getting that underdog money on him. But yeah, I think he's the much better striker, way more diverse with the strikes. Doesn't have crazy power but can definitely put the volume on you, just like he showed in his last fight against Jared Gooden, where he landed 115 significant strikes over the 15 minutes. Chaos Williams, I still think he has a little bit more improving to do. He is better, and I'll give him more credit than I should have in the past. Especially the Summelsberger fight. That was a great performance over 15 minutes. But I think he still is very much reliant on his power, especially if the fighter that he's fighting is much more technical than him, right? Miguel Baeza is the perfect example of that, where Baeza getting some solid success in that fight, but his chin and his durability, we all know what it is now, could not handle that chaos power in that third round. But I feel like if Randy Brown, if he can stay conscious here, he will likely get the better of the striking exchanges. I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe try to mix it up in the clinch or even look for takedowns here to just mix it up. But I think even if he goes out there and tries to kickbox with Chaos Williams for 15 minutes, uses his range correctly here, he should be able to just tear him apart. I don't think there'll be a finish. I think you're right on the head here in regards to the durability of Chaos Williams. So yeah, I like Randy Brown. Even him taking him to win by decision is plus 300-ish. I think that's a great bet there. So yeah, give me Rude Boy as well. No official play for me yet on him, but I'll likely have some degenerate action on him.
Yeah, I think you got to go Randy Brown, and this is a welterweight division that's starting to heat up. I think Randy Brown may crack the top 15 with a win here against Chaos Williams. We'll see what works out with that. But I've just been impressed with the evolution of Randy Brown. Not normally a striker. He uses that 6'3" frame to his advantage very well. And then a one-arm, guillotine or rear naked choke finish that he had against Cowboy Oliveira last April. I mean, I'm very impressed with that. That is a tough submission to get. Whether you want to say Cowboy Oliveira is washed or whatever it may be, that's still a capable mixed martial artist in there that you put that choke on. So I definitely like Randy Brown, and I think what this is the perfect feature prelim. I think this is going to be the fight that excites you. You see two guys that are I think going to be players in this division for a while, and UFC is going to be behind them. So I like this fight going into set us up for that pay-per-view portion here, Manpreet.
Yeah, Randy Brown is 31 years old, still, getting close to his prime, if not already in his prime. And then on the Chaos Williams side of things, he's only 28 years old. So yeah, bright futures for both of these guys. But I do think it's going to be a little bit of a UFC veteran lesson here. I know Randy Brown is not like a true veteran per se, but he's definitely been in the UFC longer than Chaos Williams. And I think we'll see the levels and the difference in levels here once Randy Brown gets his hands on him.
It's Queens, New York versus Detroit, Michigan. I mean, those are just, if you're coming from areas like that, you can always bring the pain, and guys that are just evolving as well as mixed martial artists. Interesting fight as well here on the prelims. Danny Roberts, better known as Hot Chocolate, coming in here to take on Francisco Trinaldo. You're talking about Chaos, Randy Brown being a UFC veteran. Francisco Trinaldi, a true UFC veteran, hasn't fought outside of the UFC since 2011. So, wow. I mean, since we've been pretty following the sport, Francisco Trinaldi has been inside the octagon, 27-8 as a professional mixed martial artist, and a guy that just had a couple fights ago, a 3-fight win streak snapped. Now got back on the win column with that win against Dwight Grant by split decision last October. Danny Roberts, I've enjoyed him. He's on a 2-fight win streak. I think he's an exciting fighter. I don't have any money or any betting interest in this fight, but I lean Roberts here. Maybe he catches Trinaldo with, a strike out of nowhere, a good kick, good mix of the striking. But I think Roberts, his grappling hasn't improved enough. And I think it's Roberts' time, honestly, to continue to evolve and improve it and rise up the ranks here.
I hold a little bit of grudge towards Danny Roberts because of his robbery of a win last time around against Ramazan Emeev. I thought Emeev clearly won that fight, but is what it is. I did manage to cash against Danny Roberts plenty of times in the past, especially the UFC debut of Michel Pereira, landing that beautiful flying knee on him. So I guess we're even, if that's what you want to call it. But in regards to this matchup with Francisco Trinaldo, the only thing that worries me, so it's a pick'em fight here, right? Minus 110 on both sides. And I think the vast majority of that is based on the fact that there's durability question marks regarding Danny Roberts, and there's huge KO potential on the side of Francisco Trinaldo. But if Trinaldo is not able to land that big punch, this likely looks like a, Danny Roberts kickboxing clinic over 15 minutes, where he just outpoints him, outworks him. That's always been Trinaldo's downfall, is his lack of activity, right? I think he throws almost, or he only lands about 30 significant significant strikes per fight, which is a very low margin, especially for a guy that goes 15 minutes as often as Trinaldo does. But I do lean Roberts as an official pick, or a prediction, I should say. In terms of props, Trinaldo by KO at plus 400. I think that's a great line, because if he does win, it's likely going to come via knockout. And then on the flip side for Roberts, Trinaldo's still quite durable. He has been hurt a couple times by a couple past opponents, but I don't think that we're going to see Danny Roberts really commit on any heavy strikes here in hopes of evading big shots from Trinaldo as counters. So I think he goes out there and wins this over 15 minutes, and him to win by decision is around plus 185, plus 200, which is a great bet as well, in my opinion. So give me Roberts, but honestly, I'm just going to stay away from this fight from a betting perspective. I'm good just to watch.
I think a lot of people are. I think a lot of people will take their betting break here, enjoy, and sit as a fan here with some chips and their favorite beverage in their hand and enjoy this one to see where things go. And I kind of feel the same way about our next fight here as Manpreet, we have a women's featherweight fight on this show. I mean, the division has risen like the Undertaker here at UFC 274. We have no rankings, but we have the anomaly fight here at UFC 274 at women's 145 pounds, as Macy Chiasson will take on Norma Dumont. Dumont riding a 3-fight win streak. All of those wins are by decision, 2 of them unanimous, and then the Felicia Spencer win was a split decision win last May, where her opponent, Macy Chiasson, where really everything was lining up nice for her, missed weight pretty big by around over 3 pounds, which she fought Raquel Pennington back in December. I expect Chiasson to have that issue corrected going into this fight here against Norma Dumont. But I lean here Chiasson. I think she finds a way to take this fight to a decision. I think her skills are overall maybe a little bit better than Norma Dumont. And while we may never see a title fight at 145 pounds again, Macy Chiasson was like that next contender to take on Amanda Nunes for that championship. And I think she gets back on track for a belt that may never be defended again or anything like that. But Macy Chiasson, and I think she trains also at a better gym at Fortis MMA, and that they always know how to motivate their fighters going into a big opportunity like this is here for Chiasson.
Do you happen to have a window within sight of you right now?
No, I do not.
Okay, because I just want to see if there's a blue moon outside, because that's how often we're getting featherweight fights, right? It's not often that we're seeing that 145-pound division go out there and actually complete. But both these women have had issues making 135 pounds, so it kind of makes sense as to why this fight is taking place at 145 pounds, right? If you remember, Norma Dumont missed weight against Ashley Evans Smith. She misses weight by 3.5, 4 pounds, I believe it was, goes out there and gets the win. Then she's scheduled to fight Erin Blanchfield, misses weight there, and that fight gets called off, right? So she's missed weight twice now. Chiasson, I think, has missed weight only once, if I'm not mistaken, but this fight taking place at 145 pounds completely makes sense, especially with a quick-ish turnaround for Chiasson after that Pennington fight. I kind of understand it, but I like Dumont here, man. I do think her striking will be better than what Chiasson brings to the table. Chiasson, she used to be the minus 500 favorite fight in and fight out back in the day, but a lot of people are slowly starting to realize that a lot of her success came from her physicality. She was able to, bully these women to the ground, especially the Shanna Young fight. If you go back and watch that, she got almost like 10 minutes of control time in that fight just by continuously dragging Shanna to the ground and just overpowering her and muscling there. She's not going to be able to do that here against Norma Dumont. Dumont is a thick girl at 145 pounds. It's going to be very difficult to get her to the ground. And then from there, it's going to be even harder to hold her down. So I do like what we get from the Norma Dumont side. She does have solid striking. I think she has better striking than Macy Chiasson. It's all about being active enough, because Chiasson could just pick her apart from the outside, and just by staying active, she could get ahead on the scorecards. So if Dumont is able to counter effectively, land the cleaner shots, make it look good for the judges, she should be able to get the judge's decision here. The spot that I'm actually looking at from a betting perspective is actually the fight going to a decision. I don't think there's going to be a finish here. I think they're going to exchange shots. I think there's going to be some clinch work. I think there's going to be some takedowns, but I don't think that we're going to see a finish from either side. So, minus 220 on Dumont, a little bit wide, but I do think she is the justifiable favorite in this spot. I just wouldn't, want to go out there and put my money on it with that type of return. So, I'm going Dumont decision.
Yeah, the last finish for Norma Dumont was a rear naked choke back in Brazil, September 2017. And Macy Chiasson's last finish was against Sarah Moraes, ground and pound in May of 2019, so almost 4 years ago, to the day she got that finish. That was actually 4 years ago yesterday, getting there. So yeah, if you're betting this fight going to the decision, congratulations. I think you're gonna cash out on this one because these women are definitely pretty much guaranteed to find a way to go to the scorecard. But then again, it's MMA; anything can happen. And I wonder how many more women's 145 fights we end up getting. They are advertising on the Ultimate Fighter that Amanda Nunes is the 145-pound champion, even though who knows if that ever gets defended because she's fighting a girl at 135.
Yeah, what they should have done for the rematch is make it for the 145-pound title, just to keep that belt active, right? Who cares about the 135-pound title for now, especially if we're going to get Nunes fighting again, right? Make her defend the 145-pound title just so we can keep it active, but who knows what to do. I didn't even know the Ultimate Fighter was on until it was too late. Let's just start off with that. The fact that they didn't even promote it that well over the last couple of weeks.
You know, my favorite thing of the Ultimate Fighter episode 1 was we've got Forrest Griffin here because Dana, he doesn't care anymore. He literally was like, I got Forrest. He's gonna be there for the fight and everything. And Dana just shows up to the fights. And so, I mean,
they should put Forrest in a bald cap and make him play Dana White. Just like, that would be amazing. That would be great TV.
Forrest, at least on the show, makes it a little bit more of an entertaining show to watch. I do like Forrest Griffin, and Dana could care less. And I think that sets the tone of what everyone else feels about the Ultimate Fighter in 2022. But hey, I'm still here watching it. So what does that say about me?
Let's do more contender series, less Ultimate Fighter. I think that'll be the better for the guys. Especially, like, think about what the Ultimate Fighter guys think, especially when other guys are getting contender series fights, right? You get one fight, you win spectacularly enough, you're getting a UFC contract. Or let's spend months inside a house away from reality, fighting 3 times in 6 weeks or whatever it is, and then maybe get a contract at the end of it. The payoff doesn't seem worth it. Sure, we might get to know a little bit more about you with being on the show and all, but how many people are watching it? How many people care?
Well, you know who doesn't care? The UFC, because they have guaranteed revenue with ESPN Plus. So they just throw it up there. They got a serious, easy money that they cash each and every time, because not only are they making extra for this weekend with the pay-per-view, and you got to have a subscription for the platform, and then you buy the pay-per-view, they got guaranteed revenue. So they don't even care about the Ultimate Fighter. Sorry, we went on the tangent here about the Ultimate Fighter, but I watched it, had to give my thoughts there quickly. But yeah, as we move on to this UFC 274 card, Brandon Royval, Matt Schnell. Now, this fight should be fun. Brandon Royval, to me, is one of the most exciting fighters at 125 pounds in the UFC. Matt Schnell, he's a very technical, solid fighter. But my question for you, Manpreet, does this fight actually happen? Because something always gets in the way of Matt Schnell, whether it's weigh-ins with an opponent or himself, and the commission pulls it. Like Matt Schnell, we haven't seen the danger zone since last May against Bontorin. He's had 3 fights against Alex Perez that have been canceled, and now he's set here to finally take on the raw dog, Brandon Royval.
I think it's actually 4 fights that he was set against Alex Perez, because it was even before the Bontorin fight he was scheduled to fight him. But
it is 4 against him, yes.
Yeah, see, it was 4 of them, and still nothing happened. So the first time was Perez pulling out. The second time was the belt being rescheduled. Third time was Schnell pulling out. If you guys remember, that's when apparently he was puking behind the stage after he weighed in. I put out this clip from one of the live streams where you see a UFC employee running outside of that area, grabbing a garbage bin and running back to help out Matt Schnell. And then the last time they rebooked the fight, Alex Perez missed his weight by a smidge, if I'm not mistaken. And Matt Schnell was like, nah, I'm good. I'm going to pull out. It's fine. I haven't been in the cage for a while, but my guy missed weight. We're not doing this anymore. So a lot of question marks about where Matt Schnell is at mentally, especially, and to go up against a guy like Brandon Royval, who I touched on earlier when we were talking about Tony Ferguson, a guy that presents chaos in the cage and thrives in it. I'd be surprised if Matt Danger Schnell doesn't find himself in danger in this fight, because he's gonna take a lot from Brandon Royval here. I'm a big Raw Dog fan. I think that this is a great fight for him. It's very difficult to back him as a moderate favorite here as -230, just considering how much danger he puts himself in to get some of these wins. Just watch the Kai Kara France fight. But If he
The
does
Kai Kara France fight is one of my favorite like round of the year
Insane.
moments. That was an insane, like out of a video game, just button mashing. Royval goes down, Kara France goes down, and then it ends in a wild scramble with a victory for Royval by submission.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's very like you are expected to sweat if you ever bet on a Brandon Royval fight. The spot that I like most in that fight is actually the under 2.5. I think both guys have finishing opportunities. I think Brad Schnell is the better technical fighter per se, but Brandon Royval is the better overall fighter, and that again is a lot to do with how chaotic he fights. And I just don't think certain fighters are ready for that style. Again, Kai Kara France coming off a huge win over a very good fighter in Askar Askarov. You see how good Kai Kara France could actually be, but just how Brandon Royval fights, man, he makes it very difficult for guys to have much success against him. And I'd be surprised if Matt Schnell finds any success here. So yeah, give me Brandon Royval. Give me Brandon Royval inside the distance. Give me the fight doesn't go to decision. Give me violence, Jason. Give me violence in this fight. That's what I think is going to happen here. But I think it will be Royval who gets his hand raised.
Yeah, Brandon Royval, he got back in the win column, had a phantom tap against Bontarine. So, I mean, he could have never seen the scorecards here.
That was a tap.
Exactly. That's what I think we're agreeing here. But, I mean, look at the guys he lost to beforehand. Alexander Pantoja probably should be fighting for a flyweight title. And then the former champion in Brandon Moreno. I think the competition that Brandon Royval has fought has been too good. Matt Schnell, we have, like we said, haven't seen him since last May. I don't know where he's at right now, but I don't think that the technical style he brings is going to work out nicely. You can't sit back against an offensive team in football or hockey or basketball. That offensive team will just sometimes run over you, and I expect some raw dog action to go down inside the octagon on Saturday night. As we move outside of the flyweight division here, we go to the heavyweight division. Blagoy Ivanov. You want to talk about a slow starter? It's Blagoy Ivanov as he takes on Marcos Rogerio de Lima here at heavyweight. De Lima coming off 2 wins in a row against Maurice Green, the crochet boss, and Ben Rothwell. So 2 guys that aren't even in the UFC anymore. So take that for what it is worth against here. Blagoy Ivanov. A guy that I believe was the former World Series of Fighting heavyweight champion, comes in. He's taken some good shots from the likes of former UFC heavyweight champion Junior Dos Santos, former interim title and heavyweight title contender Derek Lewis, and then Augustus Sakai. I think Ivanov finds a way to, pin up De Lima up against the fence, maybe go for a quick trip, get a submission or look for a submission. If not, he's just going to grind out De Lima here. I think Ivanov is just too much overall experience and been in there with some of the best heavyweights that the UFC has to offer. And I do kind of look at the guys that De Lima has beaten, and they're no longer in the UFC. Sure, Ben Rothwell, that guy's fought everyone at heavyweight, and you have a win over him. That's nice. But, I just think it's Ivanov's time.
I think De Lima is one of the quintessential glass cannons that we have in the heavyweight division. The guy can go out there and really give it to his opponents, but if they do not, fold and lose or are okay with just losing off of their back like Maurice Green and Adam Wizardcheck did a couple years ago, then he more often ends up losing, right? Probably the funniest moment in all of MMA history for me personally is the De Lima versus Struve fight, where literally the first punch that De Lima throws drops Stefan Struve like seconds into the fight, and then he just spends the rest of the round on top of him, can't do anything, gasses himself out trying to control Struve on the ground, and then eventually gets finished in the second round. If you look at the UFC stats to this, shout out to my guy Cody Saftik who brought this up to me. The UFC stats for that fight has Stefan Struve landing 0 significant strikes, yet still winning that fight, which is absolutely hilarious. He locks him up in a triangle choke, I believe, and gets the win there. But yeah, De Lima, yes, he's live in the first minute, 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. He has heavy leg kicks, big power in his hands. But if he's not able to get Blagoy out of there, it's going to be a rough night for him. I think Blagoy survives. We've seen him eat hellacious shots from Derek Lewis in the past and still continue to chug forward. I'd be surprised if it's De Lima that's going to be the one to put his lights out. I think Blagoy survives early and then really starts to put on De Lima later, makes De Lima quit, and eventually gets that win. Probably late finish here. I think he eventually gets him out of there. And again, another shout out to my guy Cody here, highlighting the plus 550-ish line that you can get on Blagoy to win via submission. not a bad look, right? The last 3 or 4 losses on De Lima's record, what was it? Von Prue, I believe a front choke from Alexander Romanov, or sorry, a forearm choke from Alexander Romanov, and then I think a guillotine as well from somebody in there. But yeah, De Lima, ultimate glass cannon. I think it shatters this weekend with Blagoy getting the late finish.
And more to that, De Lima has lost 7 fights as a professional mixed martial artist. 6 of them are by submission, and Blagoy is known for Blagoy is also known for getting some of those submissions. So if you like free money, potentially put that money on that plus 525. Not saying it's a guarantee, but that is a good bet, I think, as well, on the former World Series of Fighting champion in Blagoy Ivanov. Going back to the welterweight division, a quick turnaround here for Andre Fialho, as he just fought last month against Miguel Baeza, a quick first-round finish he has, and he welcomes Cameron Van Camp to the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And what a tough fight for Cameron Van Camp to take on Andre Fialho here. I know he was supposed to fight Nicholas Mota before in his UFC debut, but now he gets Andre Fialho. That was last September, the Mota fight, but this is a terrible matchup here for Van Camp. I think we've seen the best Andre Fialho going into through the last. He was a force out there on the regional scene. He ended James Vick's mixed martial arts career at the debut ex-MMA show. He was an absolute monster in UAE Warriors. Going, like I said, he went 4-0 last year, and all of those wins are by finish, TKO or KO. And then the Michel Pereira fight, that's a tough matchup just for the unique style that Pereira brings to the table. You stand in front of Fialho, he's going to put your lights out. And I think Cameron Van Camp, a talented fighter coming out of the regional scenes and former B2 welterweight champion. But this is not a guy who's got a lot of experience in Andre Fialho that I want to make my debut about that hits like a ton of bricks.
That's the thing with that we have to worry about a lot of these guys when they go out there and just get finish after finish after finish, and that is kind of the thing here with Andre Fialho. His last 5 wins coming via first round knockout, but when it starts to get extended is when it gets tough for him, right? I've seen him give up bad positions on the ground against guys like in LFA. Who was that kid? Antonio Dos Santos Jr. was able to weather that early storm, get him to the ground, and really grind him out. And that's Cameron Van Camp's game, man. He likes that jiu-jitsu game. I think his shtick is the white belt gang or something like that, but he has a bunch of submission victories on his record. That's his style. He wants to get you to the ground and try to use his jiu-jitsu against you. And if he can, withstand that early barrage from Fialho here and look to get this fight to the ground, he could have tremendous success really grinding on Fialho on the ground, finding that submission in his own right. I am not keen on betting minus 400 on Fialho money line here at all, but I would rather take the fight doesn't go to decision, which is roughly around the same price tag, right? I think you're even getting minus 300 on that, because I could see a knockout victory for Fialho early in this fight, or you can see a Van Camp submission later on in this fight. Slightly short notice for both guys, right? Because even Van Camp wasn't getting ready for a specific fight per se. Maybe he's just been staying ready in case anything falls out, just as he was supposed to do against Nicholas Mota, like you had touched upon late last year. But I'm intrigued by this fight. I'm not a big guy on Fialho. You seem to be a lot bigger on him than I am myself. And yes, I will give him his flowers in regards to him being a big knockout puncher. Even that beautiful elbow he landed against Stefan Sekulic at UAE Warriors was a thing of beauty. But if he's not able to get the knockout, things get very fishy for him later in fights. Is Cameron Van Camp one of those guys he can do it to? Possibly. It is absolutely possible, but I'm not counting out a potential Cameron Van Camp submission here later in this fight if he's able to withstand the early storm. But give me violence, Jason. Give me violence. So if we get violence here, I'll be happy.
I think we are guaranteed to get violence with Andre Fialho. And look, I like Cameron Van Camp. I think he's a good fighter to come in. As I said, a former B2 welterweight champion. That's a solid promotion in the southern part of the United States. But when you look at Cameron Van Camp, the guy with the most experience he fought is former Strikeforce and UFC veteran Bobby Volker. He lost that fight by unanimous decision back in one of the Shamrock FC shows, which is another good regional promotion out in the United States. I think Fialho brings tons of experience. I think he's riding a heater on his career. and you don't leave the table when you're on a heater there, Manpreet. So I got to go with my boy Andre Filo, representing Portugal, and finding a way to get his second win in the UFC in a matter of 1 month. As we move on here, women's flyweight, Melissa Gatto taking on Tracy Cortez. This is a fight that's kind of flying under the radar for how pretty exciting I think it's going to be. Obviously, Tracy Cortez, the current girlfriend of one Brian Ortega, taking on Melissa Gatto, who is undefeated as a professional and is coming off a nice body kick finish over Sijara Eubanks last December. This is one, it's tough. This is a pick'em fight. I think Cortez and her wrestling may be just too much here, and she finds a way to grind out a decision and hands Gatto the first loss of her career. But Gatto, if you're all about betting the violence, Gatto is that violence, that violent girl here on this card. So if you want to take violence there with Gatto. But I think Cortez, I think her skill will be a little bit too much for Gatto going into this fight.
I'm a big Tracy Cortez fan. She's won me a lot of money over the last couple fights. She's very reliable in terms of getting her takedowns and really grinding out her opponents. That Justine Kish fight got a little hairy, I must say, especially with her missing weight the day before. But she ended up going to a split decision there. I could see a case for Justine Kish winning that fight as well. But yeah, Melissa Gatto, she's very much impressing me over her last couple fights. I didn't give her much credit before the Leonardo fight. Didn't give her enough credit for the Sijara Eubanks fight. And she continues to prove me wrong. Not saying that I'm going out there and betting against her in those spots, but I just didn't think that she, could be this good. Her striking looks great. She's very vicious with when she does let her combinations go. She's very active off of her back, throwing up submissions, staying busy, working to get back to her feet at certain times. Sometimes she does seem a little comfortable playing guard, which could bite her in the ass in terms of giving up rounds. But I do think that she will stay active enough here that's going to cause Tracy Cortez some issues in terms of asserting any type of dominance from on top. And then once this fight does get back to the feet, I think that Gatto has a solid advantage in that area and could land the more significant strikes that will likely, be favored more so by the judges. So there's been huge line movement on this fight as well, actually, throughout fight week, because earlier this week, Tracy Cortez was around minus 220. Now she's around minus 140, meaning that a bunch of money has come in on Melissa Gatto, pushing her down to a plus 110-ish favorite at this point in time. And I get it. I'm picking Melissa Gatto, man. I do think that she does good enough here to deal with the grappling of Tracy Cortez. And then I think she actually she could either get her out of there later in this fight, or I think that her significant strikes, her bigger moments will likely reflect more so on the judges than what Tracy Cortez does with her grappling. And I think Gatto gets her a hand raise. I'm not betting that fight. I'd rather sit back and just watch it. I think it's a great test for both women, seeing how Cortez deals with a violent and aggressive fighter like Gatto. And then on the flip side, seeing how Gatto deals with a grapple-heavy opponent like Tracy Cortez. Like Sijara Eubanks is a grapple-heavy opponent as well. But I think Tracy Cortez is a little bit more well-rounded, especially with landing takedowns and using her wrestling. So let's see how Gatto deals with that first before we start riding off into the sunset and betting Gatto against a proven fighter like Tracy Cortez. So, sit back, enjoy this fight as a fan. That's what I'm going to be doing. But for the sake of the show, for the sake of the viewers, and giving you guys a prediction, I'll go with Melissa Gatto.
Oh, I thought we were going to go Melissa Gatto. Bet violence. That's been the trend here. Bet violence. That was what I thought we were getting. You teed us up for it, and then you just pulled the rug out from us on that one.
I can't do it.
But you know what? Hey, I'm with you. I don't think any action is going to be played on this one. This one definitely want to lay out. But I just think, when you get a striker kind of versus a grappler, I tend to favor the grappler here in mixed martial arts. I'm going to go with Tracy Cortez going on in this fight. Moving on from the women's flyweight division to the men's flyweight division, Cletson Rodriguez making his UFC debut after winning a contract on Dana White's Contender Series after a very impressive unanimous decision against Santo Curatolo, who's one of the top fighters coming out of CFFC, taking on CJ Vergara as well. With this one, definitely not putting any betting on it. But Vergara came into the UFC with a lot of hype. He beat Jacob Silva at Fury FC last March. And then what did he do in the Contender Series? A 41-second knee to the body over Bruno Correa. And then he kind of got humbled by Ode Osborne coming into the UFC and that high-level wrestling that Ode Osborne brings to the table. I lean here Rodriguez. I think he's got the ability to take the fight the distance, win a decision, or if not, put Vergara in a bad spot, use that jiu-jitsu to his advantage and find a way to get a submission victory here. It's a nice debut fight. It's a must-win in a way for Vergara. You can't go 0-2 in the UFC, but I think it's a good matchup here for Cletson Rodriguez to find a way to pick up his first win inside the octagon.
Yeah, he's a minus 350 favorite here for a reason. I think he's the much better fighter. I think he has a ton of potential. Vergara is a gamer, though, right? He's very good with his striking, very aggressive, stays in your face, and makes it difficult for you to assert your own game plan. But I think that Cletson is the real deal. Good striker, good jiu-jitsu. I still think he's slightly green. I just want to see him go out there and fight more established guys. But I think that this is a good toss-up fight for him to just get into the UFC and get a dub. And credit CJ Vergara, man. Coming off a tough loss in his first UFC fight against Ode Osborne, and then takes on a monster like Cletson Rodriguez in his next fight, which will likely be a pink slip fight for him if he doesn't get his hand raised, right? Like UFC's cutting a lot of guys.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes they'll allow them to go 0-3, but there's a lot of guys that are going 0-2 and they're just like, see ya. Thanks for doing the job for a couple of these guys. But yeah, that's what seems to be the issue here with CJ Vergara. I'm going Rodriguez. I might parlay him in this spot as well. I'm that confident in him here.
Yeah, expect a lot more cuts. The UFC yesterday released 17 fighters. We got a contender series coming up as the summer approaches here, and an Ultimate Fighter as well with 2 contracts, but they always sprinkle in another couple contracts from people that fought on that show. So yeah, lots of people to be cut. Now moving back to the women's side of things, women's strawweight. Ida Godinez, BTC fight alum and former champion at 115 pounds in the BTC fight promotion. Lupita Godinez taking on the likes here of Brazilian Ariana Carlanosi. Carlanosi here, she's looking to go 3-0 on a 3-fight win streak here against Lupita Godinez. But I think Godinez, she is just, I'm all on her. Obviously, having called her fight a little bit biased. When I asked her about her fight before she fought for BTC at Combate, which was a violent style scrap, I'm like, yeah, your last fight was pretty violent. She had a smile. It was like I gave her what she wanted for Christmas. Like, she was so excited about how violent that fight got. We all know the Demopolis fight where she won the LFA strawweight title, how wild and brutal that fight was. I'm not saying this fight gets that kind of level, but I think Godinez, she mixes it all well nice. She's got good grappling, good takedown defense, and she's a gamer. Like, this girl fought at 115 1 week last year, moved up to 125 and just, gassed out towards the end. I like Lupita Godinez. I think she does find a way to get a finish here late in this fight, but I'm all in on Lupi, and you should be too, everyone. This is a very exciting girl coming out of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada.
I don't know how I can say any better than you, Jason. I love me some Lupi in this spot. It was one of the last fights that I ended up tape studying here, and Carlanosi is a physical specimen to behold when you actually lay eyes on her. I like to call her the mini Jessica Andrade. Pretty much, she goes out there and just she's powerful, she's strong, and she fights exactly like that. But the fact that now Liang's able to land 3 takedowns on her in the first round does not bode well, especially with if Godinez can go out there and implement her grapple heavy style as well. I think she gets it done, man. I think she gets it to the ground. I think a submission opens itself up probably later that this fight goes, and I think she gets her out of there. So, yeah, she's one of my more confident spots on this card, honestly, and I think minus 170-ish, which is where she's currently at. I think that's a steal and a half. So, yeah, give me Lupi here, and I think she gets a little bit of a win streak going for herself. Good on her for taking that short notice Carolina spot or fight. It was a good learning experience for her, a good experience, period, just to get some more cage time. But let's get to work. 115 pounds is where you're supposed to be. Let's get back to work. Let's put together a couple wins and start climbing those ranks like she should be.
Well, let's just quickly wind this down. Got one more fight here. Quick pick, Journey Newsom, Fernie Garcia. I'll lean here Garcia quickly. I think, bantamweight, one bantamweight fight on this card was kind of wild how deep that division is.
Yeah.
But I lean Garcia here going into this fight to set the tone for this show. He's a Mexican fighting after Cinco de Mayo weekend. He cannot lose this fight.
I'm going to be on the opposite side here. I do think that Journey Newsom is a much better fighter than people expect. I don't think he should be the underdog here. Like, I get it. He got knocked out by Randy Costa in his last fight, but Randy Costa, very dangerous in the early going. Fernie Garcia hasn't really shown me much to make me believe that he can go out there and beat a guy like or Newsom. I think Newson's a great underdog to start the card. And yeah, I think he's going to remind people once he picks up the victory here against Fernie Garcia. So honestly, like, I'm trying to be as respectful as possible. I don't think Fernie deserves a spot on the UFC roster.
Wow.
Yeah, I think Newson reminds us why this weekend.
All right. Well, we'll see if those predictions come true. We'll see if our predictions work out. Obviously, this is a exciting time, a big pay-per-view to start the month of May with 2 titles on the line. And Manpreet will be back with me on Sunday afternoon to recap the events and go over what we said here today and look ahead to what we think about what happened on the show on Sunday afternoon at around noon Eastern. So definitely want to hit the subscribe button here because Manpreet and I will be back to break down everything. But before I let you go here, Manpreet, plug yourself. I mean, you're doing content each and every day. I don't think people that are watching here don't need to know, but hey, you just gotta, if you want again to let people know, let them know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to having egg on my face come Sunday when when Fernie Garcia knocks out Journey Newson in the first 20 seconds. But no, Jason, always a pleasure hopping on with you whenever I get the invite. I'm very much looking forward to doing the recap show with you on Sunday as well. You guys can follow me at MMALOTN on all social media platforms. My YouTube channel is actually just my name now, so you can see the first name right there, Manpreet, followed by JHASS, Jazz, as my last name on for YouTube. Make sure you guys check it out. I'll be doing my own stream again at 9 o'clock this evening just to go over the card by myself, taking some questions from the live chat as well. I'll also be editing my Coach's Main Event Marathon show, which I've recorded over the past 24 hours. I'll be having James Krause, I'll be having Cody Donovan, and I'll be having Tyson Chartier all giving their opinions on the 2 title fights for this weekend's card, as well as continuing the challenge, which is forcing those coaches to pick one bet on every main card of pay-per-view. We've been going since February. Right now, Tyson Chartier is at the top of the leaderboard after he cashed on Aljamain Sterling last month, cashing him at plus 350. But yeah, that's a very fun, unique show, very, very original show that not a lot of people are doing. Very happy that the coaches are doing that. So please do show some support for that show. It'll drop tonight, this evening. This is Thursday right now. So Thursday evening, it will be out. And yeah, that's about it. Friday, I'll have my live stream as well. Ultimate Wayne show with my guy, Alex Bahunin. I believe that's how you say his last name. I believe he works for Cage Side Press. So make sure you guys check us out tomorrow, I believe 3 p.m. Eastern. And Fight Day, 1 p.m. Eastern, Fight Day live chat on my channel, taking all last minute questions, comments, and concerns from the comment section to place any last minute wagers that anybody wants. So yeah, a ton of content, like Jason said. The grind don't stop. We stay busy. We stay churning out content, and we appreciate all the support and love as it comes.
All Manpreet all the time here on the realm of social media in the mixed martial arts side of things. Manpreet, thank you for your time. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Hopefully, it's just after dinner time here. Get some tacos or something to celebrate right now. And we'll be back Sunday to recap UFC 274 right here on my YouTube channel. So definitely make sure you hit the subscribe button. And we'll be back on Sunday to break everything down. So once again, Manpreet, thanks for your time, and we'll chat Sunday.
Yes, sir. I'll see you then.